How's the view?
Good morning. Where's our senior class out there? We'd like to
Yeah! Koozie! On the feet,
So welcome. It was a whole lot of years ago. As fire chief, I get a call at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's for a 2-car crash. I respond to the call, following the first police car onto the scene. I get to the scene. A drunk had broadsided the car on the right side. As I got out of the car, the drunk driver was already engaged in a conversation with Dad from the first car. As I looked through the car, I could hear a lady screaming inside the car. And I thought, oh boy. As I'm looking, I could see she had severe injuries because she took a direct impact to her door. As I scanned the back of the car, I saw a child's seat in the back, and I thought, thank God there's no kid in this car. And as I continued to check the car out, I looked, and there was a lifeless little body laying on the front seat floor. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's a little kid. I remember reaching in, grabbing this pulseless little girl, taking her out of the car, and quickly laying her across the hood of their car and started mouth-to-mouth and CPR on this kid while the officer was yelling at me to put a mask on. I got way too attached to that call. You talk to anybody that's police and fire, they'll tell you the worst thing that you can do is become attached to a call and start taking it to a personal level on the victims. But I couldn't help it. I was already engaged with this little girl who had a striking resemblance to my 3-year-old daughter at home. The injuries were so severe on Mom that they had to actually do the funeral at Regent's Hospital. And I put on my fanciest uniform I had, and I was filled with so much sorrow. We just lost a 3-year-old child in our city. So I put on my fanciest uniform, I went to the funeral, and I did something I shouldn't have done. I got stuck right in the middle of one of the pews there. As I'm looking at this little casket, I'm looking at this little girl who was wearing this big white hat, and I knew why, because of the head injury she had. And then they started playing the song, No More Tears in Heaven, and I was trapped. I couldn't get out, and I sat and cried. A few months later, I get a call from Edina High School. They were going to do their first mock car crash ever. And they wanted to know if I would MC it. And I said, sure, I'd love to do that. 25 years later, I'm still doing these things. Every year I tell the people at the high schools, Apple Valley, Eastview, Egan, Rosemont, and Mr. Mathis over here, that I'm going to retire. But then the phone rings and they ask if I would do it again. And I just can't say no. So the message is so important here today. I want you guys to be really attentive to what's going on. I just heard on the news the other day that drunk driving in Minnesota has already killed about 97 people in the state. Distracted driving, right behind it. They've killed like 82, I think it was. So this has become a real problem. Not only driving under the influence, but distracted driving. So before we get started here today, just to kind of drive a point home, I want you to put your hand up if you, friend, a member of your family, or somebody you just know has been involved in either a drunk driving crash or a distracted driving crash. Could you just sneak your hands up real quick? Okay, guys, take a look around here. There's a ton of people here that have already been impacted from this type of thing. So this isn't something to just consider. It's not an option to consider. It's something you need to take real seriously and right now. And I'm counting on you as a retired fire chief to help us out, to help stop this. So what we're going to do here today is a live dramatization of what it looks like, and we're going to do it in real time. So from time to time, it may seem to go just a little bit slow, but that's the way it is. When you're involved in one of these crashes, from the time of the crash to the time the first squad car gets there, it's probably only going to be a couple of minutes, but it's going to seem like an hour. So we're going to do this out in real time, and you can see what happens when some people make a very bad decision. So right now, I know prom's coming up, but we don't want to focus on prom. We want to focus on any day of the year you're out there, either by yourself, with a group of friends, and all of a sudden, drugs, alcohol, or you start text messaging on your phone, and right by the time you think nothing could ever happen to me, things start going really, really wrong.
Emergency. Hi, I'm on the corner of Valley View and Gleason, and I just saw a car accident. Okay. How many cars are involved? There were 2 cars. Okay. You know if there's any injuries? It's hard to see. I see a little girl on the ground, and there's another person. Oh God, there's another person in the hood of the car. Yeah, there's okay. We'll get units right down there. Valley View and Gleason. Yeah, Valley View and Gleason. Okay, we'll get somebody right down. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, as our scenario starts out, we have a 2-car impact.
Edina Rescue Medic 3.
And police and fire now being dispatched.
PI accident. Several patients at Bellevue and Gleason. PI accident. Several patients at Bellevue and Gleason.
Oh, she did.
Here, road at 10:15. Ambulance copy, when en route. For all cars on channel 1, it is a mock disaster at the school you can disregard.
I like him.
Okay, as we start out, there's 2 cars involved. Unfortunately, we already have 2 fatalities. One gal that was not in her seatbelt was ejected through the windshield, lying pulseless on the hood of the car, while the other one, a young man, was ejected from the car who did not survive. First on the scene is going to be the police officers, and they've got the daunting task of figuring out what's going on, and they're going to be triaging the patients. In other words, they're going to do a quick patient assessment and see who needs first aid first.
Dead.
Why don't you just sit down? I just keep walking around the car.
Help! Somebody help! Somebody!
Whoop, whoop.
Damn it!
You should pull the trigger. That'd be really nice. Feels good, dude. Takes like 30 minutes to get the gloves off. Another one.
While our police officers continue to triage the people, we have our intoxicated driver over here. Doesn't have a clue what just happened. He's under the influence. He's not only in shock, he's intoxicated. Probably doesn't even know where he is. And doesn't even realize that there's a fatality in his own car.
I think Sammy's job is just to lay there dead.
Yeah, just walks over.
Who's in that car? Who's that? Playbill? Is it Playbill?
Our mock crash today is being done on a nice sunny day. quite often, these scenarios play out in the middle of the night, sometimes in rain, sometimes snow, and quite often they're off the roadway and in ditches.
Where are they? Come on! You're open!
Fire department too.
Oh, we
The
got the
next
SUV,
arriving agencies here is your Edina Fire Rescue, ambulance. They'll continue to triage people, begin first aid on them,
This is
prepare for transport.
almost as many police cars.
Fire department is now on the scene.
Fight
Fire
between
department's
both.
responsibility is to make sure there's no chance of fire. They'll also assist the paramedics from the ambulance.
Who's up and go on?
Brooks, I was going home on the bus, and your decision was like third. I was walking down to the lower field to watch the fight when all the cops.
When was our fight?
A while ago. Chris and Bogey, it was like sophomore year, wasn't it? Yeah. The cops came to my house and questioned me about it. Because Chris told me he was going to bring a gun. And I did not tell you. Yeah. He said he was going to bring a Louisville Slugger in at 9. I was like, that's Bob.
I know.
As EMS begins to prepare the patient for transport, a great deal of care is being given. Just in the event there's either a spinal or
By
injury.
now, you will have pulled out your phone, start checking Instagram.
That's not Cap. Cap that goes on the bus. Is that Jack Cole?
Yeah. But if I was in his position, I would have actually gotten drunk before this was to get my method acting going.
Because at least one of our victims is trapped in the car. Fire department is now preparing equipment to be able to pry a door open or remove the roof of the car to extricate the patient.
He's like actually drunk. He like falls over. He convinces himself he's actually dead. Fuck. Could you imagine acting this out if you weren't passive? How shit was that?
That's what I was just thinking.
Straight up have a bad trip. Dude, great minds. The other day we took... Yeah, man.
While the medics continue to prepare people for transportation, we have our police officer over here. He's beginning to interview the driver of the car. And he's questioning him. He's going to begin the process to determine whether or not he feels that this individual is driving while impaired.
They got T-bone. They have to like pull the window. I'm just wondering, why are there dents on the side of that car?
Isn't that Kenny's dad?
They just go in that car.
Oh yeah, Kenny's dad is a cop.
No, it's Kenny Wakeford's dad. He's a firefighter.
Our medics already have the first
They should have done it.
patient already on the backboard and stretcher being prepared for transport. The rest of the medics continue to triage work, trying to determine the best way to extricate victims from their cars.
They didn't even deal with the girl in the front.
I still think that. I'm alive. Good job.
While police and fire continue to remove people from the car, Every time a police officer begins his skills sobriety test right here. By giving simple instructions he wants to see, the driver of the car is able to follow some very basic, simple instructions. If he's not, it will lead to further testing.
Sandusky.
I gotta get more people out there. More people out.
We're about 10 minutes into the production at this time. Take a look around at the resources. They're called in to handle something like this. And if this was an actual one, the number of responding vehicles, police, fire, EMS, would probably be closer to triple what you see out here today. While they begin continue to package people up,
Big cop actually does not know how to give a real sobriety test.
lying
So
dead
it's
across
just
the
like, follow the finger.
She did absolutely nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong.
This is a long-ass sobriety test.
She's not having a good time. Her parents have no idea that their daughter has been in a fatal car crash and won't be coming home tonight. They have no clue what's going on.
They shoot.
Oh, okay, so she's dead. Oh,
Taking a quick snooze before the cop. They don't do the straight line anymore.
like the dents on the top of the windshield.
At this time, our deputy police officer is continuing the field sobriety test. He's giving a simple instruction to see if our driver can stand on one foot and balance.
Here's a Jack Boy, he's like
And
a
then
sex
just-
predator.
Is he really?
Heel to toe. See if he's
Yeah?
able to.
Did you ever think about that? Jack Boy is like low-key, like a...
Yeah, I believe it. Just look at the guy. Can't even stand up straight. Really?
Yeah, shit you not. He like sends out like mass.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, Grace.
With her and who?
I didn't know that. Really?
That would be an awesome threesome.
Yeah, but you don't just ask that.
Yeah. Works about 20% of the
While the
time.
police officer continues to do his field sobriety test, Dad's watching over Mom, his daughter, and the whole time, his son is lying lifeless under a sheet of the pavement. Their whole life has changed. In just a snap of a finger, everyone here in this scenario, life has just changed. Young man will never be at Christmas again. Vacations, it's just going to be a huge void in the family for the rest of their lives. Parents will always remember him. When they figure he would have been 18 this year, he would have graduated from high school. He would have been about 22, 23, he would have graduated from college. These are all anniversary dates that are just going to be burned into the minds of these parents. The same with their students over here. They're always going to remember this. This isn't something that just is over with in an evening. This is a lifetime occurrence.
I'm like desensitized to the shit.
That sucks that they're in one. Just leave that girl under a tarp. She's juiced that ambulance. She's like the back will just juice that girl up. Yeah.
That'd be so. The ambulance driver's like low-key drunk.
It's because the. Trying to get out of there. Why don't they just do a circle right there?
Or fun kid that just juiced kid. Gotta do a 10-point turn. Meanwhile, everyone's like bleeding out.
Oh, here comes the hearse. Oh my god. Yeah. Why do they have it?
I think it's like they stage a funeral after.
Like right after.
Well, yeah, it's a play.
For you and your homies must be dying in chalk. The chalk around. Paradise.
I want to see him walk Jack Ford.
If it takes them this long to turn around, how long do you think it'll take them to get in like an emergency situation?
Yeah, but there wouldn't be a bunch of people.
Yeah, you gotta
All
think
of our
about
victims
it.
are now, have been prepared for transport to the nearest trauma or hospital for treatment.
What are you doing?
We still have our young female across the hood of the car that won't be going home ever again. And again, her parents think she's out for out with friends for the night, just having a good time. They have no idea. They have no idea. What about Dad here? What do we do with Dad?
What?
His family's on the way to the hospital.
She knows nothing about it.
And here's Dad right here. What do you tell this guy? His son's like dead on the table. His whole life turned upside down.
Okay. I'm not.
Everything that this guy knew that was normal an hour ago has now changed forever. Our intoxicating driver
Did you really just didn't tell us?
has just completed a PBT test and breath test.
That's all it says.
Yeah. Based on the results of his PBT, our young police officer is now placed the individual under arrest.
Dude, that's like I'll never cross that.
He's going to go to
No, I know I'm safe.
He'll be in jail for at least a day. If it's a weekend, he'll be in jail longer until he can get bailed out. He's going to have to hire an attorney.
Maybe they just have
Parents. This guy.
There's so many people that have gotten busted for
This
D-dubs.
is going to be on the news. This is going to be everybody is going to know. Everybody is going to know. He will go to court.
Wait,
All
but
the information
isn't
will be
it
presented
isn't it
to court.
illegal to drink alcohol?
And he will be convicted for criminal negligence resulting in death. Doesn't stop there for him. He'll probably do 6 or 8 years in jail. He'll get out of jail.
They bring up
And then it
first.
comes time to continue on with his education, if he does decide to go to college. Then he goes to get a job. When he fills out the application,
his job.
all of you have filled out job applications. There's one box on that application that's going to eliminate him from ever getting a good job. And the question is, have you ever been convicted of a felony? His career is done.
Ban the box.
He's not only destroyed his life, but he's destroyed all the people around him. One bad decision.
Ford really got taken over tonight.
Like how the bed's stuck. They don't bring a hearse to the site of the crime.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They bring 2 ambulances, one for the alive, one for the dead.
They have to down the
First one has like one call.
Oh yeah.
the non-survivors here today.
They're getting like 15 weeks.
Just reflect for a second that was one of your family members here today.
Jack Ford in the cop car.
Each
car is
year,
it?
18,000 people are dying on highways. And this is very similar to this. You don't even need to stop this. It's certainly slowing down.
That was really funny. Dude, that's that dude, you sitting in Andrew's face.
Yeah, that was a good one. Is it on your phone?
So much.
Andrew has one. I know I have one of Andrew's.
You guys are
I'm not sweating. I'm fine. Yeah, you are.
Just
you take that off. Big old strip that ring that out. Give me that.
Yeah, I don't know. This camera is recording.
Yeah, dude. I mean, literally everything you guys say is going on Zephyrs.com.
No way.
This is?
You're gonna use this?
That's why I was telling you guys to shut the
You never
I told Brooks and Derek.
What if I said that's that bad?
show pocket.
God damn it.
No.
Andrew,
Are you serious, though?
where do you want to go?
This on Zephyr Stack
I have to.
As our fire
That's what I'm
department
doing.
begins the process of cleaning up,
like 8 layers.
getting their equipment
Please.
back on the truck, station,
I straight up said I can't say it. It's still fucking
same with the
recording.
police.
I was hearing it.
They're going to be out here doing measurements on the pavement,
God damn it.
taking
Joe, you
pictures
gotta take this out.
of debris on the highway,
Did you say
of all bottles and cars, which will all be presented as.
What are you talking about?
And again, what about our survivors?
We were talking about how
We have the young lady over the hood of the car.
you gotta take the sound out, bro.
25 years we've done these productions, and the one thing that I just can't figure out how to show you is what does it look like when the police officer pulls into the driveway of a house, mom or dad opens the door, police officers there telling them that their child isn't coming home ever again, they were just killed. And your daughter's chased. After 25 years of listening to testimonies by survivors, the pain is absolutely crushing. There's no way you can put words to it. But fortunately, we do have somebody here today that can share a little bit about that. I can stand up here and I can narrate these things. The police and fire can come in here and do what they do. Funny thing is, we don't have to do any rehearsals on these things. Police, fire, and EMS, we're doing this all the time. This is a natural thing. There's no missteps. They look at it, it's their job, and they do what they gotta do. But what about the survivors? Well, we have somebody here today that would like to share a story with you who lost a loved one in a drunk car crash. And I want you to pay very close attention to what she has to say, because this is never easy. And even after 11 years after this incident, it's still not easy. And she'll talk about the whole, the feelings and all the things involved with it. But this time, I'd like to introduce Lisa to you and have her share her story with you.
Thank you. So, like was mentioned, my name is Alicia, and in 2006, I was not that much older than any of you. I was 22, I had just graduated from Madison, I had applications in for law school, I was going on vacations, I got engaged, finally someone my mother actually liked. It was a big step forward in my dating history. He had a good family. He was one of 7 kids. They were all really close. They got together every week. They had birthday parties for each other, even into their 20s and 30s. I was really excited about everything that was going on in my life. Christmas 2006 was the very first Christmas in my entire 22 years I was going to spend away from my family because I had to work. I had spent Christmas Eve with my fiance and his family, and he built me a house out of Legos, and we had dinner, and then I drove back to Madison where we were living. Got up the next day, I went to work. It was a totally normal day, and I got off work, I called him, he was still finishing laundry at his parents' house, and he was going to home to our apartment when he finished. I went to bed because I had to, again, get up in the morning and go to work. And at midnight, I got a phone call. And it was his brother's girlfriend, and she said, "You need to come down to UW. Brian's been in a car accident."
Hey, bastard. Shut up.
I will remind you it was Christmas, and in flip-flops, Abercrombie sweatpants, and a hoodie, I drove to downtown Madison, where 2 hours later, when I finally got to see Brian and we still didn't know where Megan was, I collapsed in his brother's arms when I finally saw him, and he had a neck brace, and his leg was in a cast, and his head was wrapped up, and there's tubes everywhere, and I don't actually know where he is in this bed of everything. His parents had to drive from Milwaukee. Fun fact, not everyone had a cell phone in 2006, and so they didn't know where 2 of their children were or if they were even alive. We were planning a wedding, and instead I planned a funeral.
You zoom in.
I held his hand and I kissed his
Zoom in on
cheek
her.
and I thanked him for everything he had done for me, because I also got accepted to law school with a scholarship while my unconscious fiance laid in a hospital bed.
You know.
And I told him how much I loved him, and I watched his lips turn blue, and I watched him die. And then I saw 2 tears roll down his cheeks as Megan carried me out of the room. We found out later that the passenger in the 19-year-old driver's car had been thrown 25 feet out the back window because she didn't wear her seatbelt. She was 21. She left behind a 5-year-old little girl who is now 16.
Serious. Yeah, she's not.
I
she's never
drove
chosen that
5
spot.
hours each way back and forth for every single court hearing for an entire year. I made the news. I had to testify in court. Not the way I wanted to make my first court appearance.
Just washed.
My best friend had to sleep on my couch with me for over a week because I couldn't sleep in my bed. I had to pack up our apartment and find a new home for his cat because I couldn't have a cat. I found the receipt for our first date and some really cheesy song lyrics buried in a drawer that I never knew existed. I couldn't stay in Madison because it was too hard. There were too many memories and too many places that reminded me of him. And I developed a really severe anxiety disorder where I was convinced that everyone else I loved was also going to die at any given point in time, to the point where I had to call my mom 5 or 6 times a day to make sure that she was indeed alive. After a year of court hearings and plea bargains and everything, the driver pled guilty to 2 counts of homicide by intoxicated use of a motor vehicle and was sentenced to 13 years in prison, which was one of the stiffest penalties Wisconsin had ever given out, plus an additional 15 years of extended supervision. So he will be in prison for another 3 years because Wisconsin has truth in sentencing, and then he'll be under supervision for another 15 years. I've gone to weddings for Brian's family. His sister got married last year. His brother is getting married in 3 weeks. Brian should have been 37 in 2 weeks, and last year I ran a marathon on his 36th birthday. It was my first marathon, and I know he was there with me, especially at mile 18. You guys might not think this is real, you might think it's funny, you might think, hey, it's a great way to get out of class for an hour. I sat here shaking because it still gets me. I sat here crying in front of however many of you there are because my heart still pounds looking at this. I had to drive through the intersection where it happened because it was 3 blocks from Megan's house. And I had to look at glass for weeks because it didn't get cleaned up. My mom had to wrap my Christmas presents in generic brown paper for 5 years before I could acknowledge Christmas. You guys, I never want any of you to live through this because this sucks. And it doesn't get easier, the scar tissue just gets thicker. I still don't really like Christmas. I still drink a Guinness on his birthday every year. And December 29th, yeah, that's a vacation day because I can't handle it still. So please make good choices. Remember that there are people out there that love you and they just want you to come home safe. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all the people that helped out today, especially the people that helped out with the production today. Where are you guys? You still standing around here somewhere? I think you guys are right here. I would like to thank these people who took some time out of their life to plan this, to execute this production. Sometimes it might not be the most popular thing to do, but they chose to plant their flag for us. I'd also like to thank the Edina Police Department, Fire Department, the EMS, funeral home that helped out on this today, and all the other people, the sound people that did this. I'd certainly like to thank the student body today for being very attentive. We really, really do appreciate it. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my employer, Grace Church Meeting Prairie, for allowing me to be here today. So thank you very much, and you may return to your normal scheduled class next time.
Lift it up, lift it up. Let me get it on the Zephyrus footage. Let me get some Zephyrus footage. I'm gonna get it for Zephyrus, man. Come on.
Honey, everyone has